Hi and welcome. This is James Cole. We met each other in Tasmania in 2019. James has a really unique background. James, would you tell us about your background?
Yeah, sure. How you going, Mike?
Good to see you.
Yeah, no worries. Well, where do you start? Originally grew up around here, Bathurst, sheep and cattle station, the old man's place. Started breaking horses when I was about 10 years old. Left home when I was about 14, 15. Went up to the Northern Territory, Queensland, breaking horses, stock camps, cattle camps and that sort of stuff. From there, I was doing a lot of shearing for about 4 or 5 years.
And James, what's shearing?
Shearing is when, like out west, because Australia was built on the sheep industry, mainly merinos, is bringing the mobs of sheep into the shed, and you have a team of blokes there with shears, taking the wool off them, and a lot of the sheds that we operate in, especially out west, you're probably looking around 30,000 head of sheep in one shed. So that'll probably take us, depending on how many shearers you got, so if you had a team of say 10 shearers, probably a month and a half or something like that to do that, 2 months, finish them. Then they move on to another mob of sheep somewhere else in the country, keep doing that. From there I joined the Australian Defence Force, 1st Battalion and 1st 19th Royal New South Wales Regiment, originally as a machine gunner. Then I, as an infantryman, up at North Force, up in the Gulf of Queensland, long range reconnaissance, patrol commander. And then, as I said, went back to the 1st Battalion, which is a regular battalion, and was predominantly a lead scout and visual tracker in the army, and obviously dealing with a lot of technical stuff as infantry soldiers do. We're not just sort of like grunts, you know.
James, can you tell us a little bit about North Force?
Well, North Force is a battalion. There's 3 battalions up in the northern part of Australia. So in Queensland you've got the 51st Reconnaissance Battalion. In Northern Territory you've got North Force, and in Western Australia you've got the Pilbara Regiment. Now all these battalions are reconnaissance units for defence and surveillance for the top end of Australia against possible threats coming in from the north. Those patrols could be, well, predominantly long-range patrols using long-range vehicles, Land Rovers, 6x6s. We're out in the field for several weeks at a time. Or you've got offshore patrols. I've done a lot of offshore patrolling out of Gove, where you've got the Zodiacs, and we have 3 Zodiacs, and so a team of say 6 to 8 blokes, and we run the shorelines looking for drug dealers, illegal immigrants, and mapping, surveying, even get the odd job to go and look for down Japanese Zeros out of World War II. If they get a lead on that, we go and have a look and all that sort of stuff.
So it's all about reconnaissance and scouting work?
Reconnaissance and scouting work, yeah.
So you're an expert in that?
Providing information back to the relevant people so they can then decide where they need to place their forces for protection, or who's moving in the area of concern. Yeah.
So James, where did you go from there with the?
So from North Force back into the 1st Battalion, where I was the lead scout and the visual tracker. Stayed there for about 2 or 3 years, and I was attached to the 2nd and 3rd Marines out of Hawaii, and I got a training accident over there. And
that's the Americans?
Yeah, the Americans. And then I got a medical discharge after coming back in having surgery. From there I was a bit disgruntled with everything because of the lack of duty of care that I thought that was supposed to be in it, and I felt I was sort of missing out on things in the world. So a couple of months later, after I got discharged, I went back to Iraq as a mercenary, and running vehicles over there out of Kuwait, across the border, running trucks up in Baghdad and back down south to the Jap base and that.
So you worked on the convoys then?
On the convoy protection.
You're doing security with them? Yeah.
Running gun trucks, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we had a sort of multinational crew from American, British, obviously Australian, New Zealand, and a lot of Iraqis working with us. From there, came back to Australia and I was doing a lot of horse breaking, sort of just contracting about in Australia. I bought a cattle station in Texas, which is bottom end of Queensland, and from there I went into treasure hunting. So I bought a ground penetrating radar off the Turks, and I went back to England, and I was running like radars and over there, mainly on the old World War II bomber strips. From World War II, all the bases, and picking up artefacts, and there was a bit of money involved in the way that, say, you had the old B-25 bombers that crashed on the end of the airstrips and over there. They still had all the weapons and ammunition in there. So when we dug them up, the government was offering £1 a round for a 50 cal round. So it was pretty good money. And one bomber, you know, just had a couple of thousand rounds in there. So we'd pull the 50 cal rounds out and take them off to the what do you call it, the steel merchants, and because they had a better quality lead and copper and that sort of stuff, brass.
Were the planes all impacted up and crushed?
No.
Oh, wow.
They like they have a wing dropped out, and obviously tore apart when they hit the end of the runway and busted up. But like you still had the fuselages and that intact, and a lot of them, yeah. And they just pushed them off the end of it and covered them up. Then I came back to Australia, still did a bit of treasure hunting. I was doing all the Air Force bases from World War II around Australia, so Townsville, Brisbane, Tokemore, and looking at a few artefacts and history, which led me into stuff like archaeology, in a way of looking at, there's several pyramids in Australia. So I that took me interest in looking around for them and, you know, finding bits and pieces. And in the meantime, while I was breaking horses doing all this, I decided to go back to Africa to run anti-poaching units and to establish a cavalry mounted unit to help preserve and protect the rhinos, elephants, and from the poachers, which was in a way a roundabout way of fighting terror at that point. We're talking about 2013, the ongoing war in Iraq and Afghanistan. So one rhino horn is worth about $4 to $5 million. So one rhino horn is taken back, whoever buys it, like China, is predominantly the ones who are buying it. Money going back into weapons and ammunition to the Middle Eastern countries like Afghanistan, Iraq, to maintain that war effort over there. So in a way it was a war on terror anyhow. It was sort of just another avenue, different perspective, and which not a lot of people sort of realise that was going on. But yeah, the job I was doing, or am doing, is my cav unit, which is pretty sort of specialist sort of a...
So instead of using vehicles, you're actually using horses, like back in the day, right?
Yeah, horses. So what we're doing is, I go to Africa, I train say 20 rangers on how to ride, maintain their horses, feed them, look after them in the field as also in the base. All their saddle equipment, how to maintain that, how to utilise it, pack horses, and probably drawing on my North Forest experience with reconnaissance and surveillance and that, putting long range reconnaissance into the mounted units to secure areas from poachers. We are an aggressive force, so we will go out and actively hunt the poachers, and we use obviously visual tracking and canine units attached to our horses. The blokes are educated and trained in running dogs with the horses, and it's ever evolving situation too. So we're going old school with the horses and cav, and all the tactics we're using from US cavalry and Australian light horse manuals. So it's all old school from back in, from about World War I onwards, manuals. But we also incorporate modern day equipment such as drones, and so we run a pack horse with a drone attached to the back of him. So we've got the drone operator, we'll pull up, launch the drone off the back of a pack horse, he'll go forwards, recon the area, So not only where sort of our threat out there would be the poachers, but we also got a threat from the animals themselves, so lions, leopards at night, hitting the horses or attacking us. There was an instant there where a couple of rangers and horses were taken out by lions. They got ambushed, you know, so it is sort of like a double-edged sword in some cases in operations. Yeah.
And James, your troopers are Indigenous people, right? Most of them.
Most of the blokes we use are local African blokes. The last lot of courses I'd done last year, for the first time we had female troopers involved. They did well. It's a high intense workload for beast and man due to the hours that we've got to do, and because we do night patrols, day patrols, 3-day, 4-day, 5-day patrols. Arduous country. It's not the African plains. We're operating in some pretty rough country where there's lack of water, not a lot of feed for the horses. We've got to carry our own water on us and use it sparingly. So not only these fellas are learning how to handle their horses properly in these type of country, but they've got to learn bush skills, survival skills. And the black Africans have a tendency to be able to handle that a lot better. And I think due to the fact that the black African fellas, the rangers, they're growing up tough anyhow. They haven't got a lot of, haven't got the lifestyle that we have, where the comforts that we have. So they're battling from the start. A lot of the blokes come in, they have no family, they have no mother or father. They're still trying to make their way in this world. And one of the blokes I contract to for these courses, he'll hire them on, give them a chance, give them a job. They'll go through a ranger course. I don't teach the rangering. They'll actually go through a rangering course, which is run by, I think, ex-3-2 battalion soldiers, or SLU scouts, or RLI, Rhodesian Light Infantrymen, ex. And so that'll set them up to be rangers and do the ranger course. And then it's volunteers that come to me, and I run the course.
And the military you were talking about were South African military, right?
Yeah, those are ex-South African military units of when the apartheid was in. The South African Army at this point in time is not what it used to be. So ex-3-2, when I say, if you have a look up 3-2 battalion, you'll find that they were like a pretty specialist unit and what they were capable of doing, what they did in the border wars and that sort of stuff. The Rhodesian, obviously the Rhodesian Light Infantry is from when it was Rhodesia, and when that collapsed, and they were good soldiers. They were the same as Australian soldiers, because it was all British, part of the British Empire back then, South Africa, Rhodesia and all that, same as Australia and New Zealand. So all our drill and sort of fighting and the attitude of the soldiers is sort of pretty similar. That's why you get a lot of Australians go over there, and we can work with the Boers because we've got sort of like the same mindset and the same sort of country we're coming from. So quite often we'll go to Africa. I think I'm still in Australia anyhow, you know, because of the, we've got a lot of eucalypts over there.
Well, James, do you think you're making a difference there in what your troops are doing?
I think it's a long, hard road, and it's forever changing. And while there's always greed for finances and power and that sort of stuff, there's always going to be a threat. So yeah, we're making a change in increments, but we've got to keep on the ball. We've got to keep it going to maintain that difference. If we slacken off, if things stop, well, it's just going to turn around and go back the other way pretty quick. Mm-hmm. To the blokes, my rangers that I train, I hope I make it, I think I do make it, give them confidence. I give them, through the course, confidence in themselves, new skills, and sort of opens their mind up, especially in a world where so many people are fighting for the same job. You shake a tree and 1,000 rangers fall out of it. Half of them haven't got a job because, you know, you can't just pull jobs out of thin air. You give to so many people looking for work. So when they come and learn how to ride their horses, how to handle the equipment properly and do this sort of work. It puts them in a specialist category. So when they go from this unit, they might have a spell going, might just be normal rangering for a couple of years somewhere, but then they can go somewhere and pick up another job at another property, and because of the attitude they develop from handling horses, the confidence and the ability they've got, they can then start their own, have the opportunity to start their own job on that range of property, and continue on with that. So
you actually care about them as people?
Yeah, well, yeah. You got to look after them.
Yeah.
It's funny, like, you see one bloke stand in front of you, and how you work with him dictates what his life's going to end up like. So if you tear a bloke down, right, and he walks away from you, then the decisions he's going to make from that point on could be like, no one cares about me, so why would I care about anyone else? So then he leads down a path of, wrongdoing, I suppose, and neglect, and the path of wrongness. If I turn around and teach my ranger to have respect, dignity, and that there's, if he puts his mind to something, he can make something and progress and develop something, give him the courage and the confidence to build something for himself, then that puts him on a different path in life, where then he can go away thinking, well, maybe if I do this, I'll be better, and teach my family and teach my kids, and work on a better life instead of a worse life. So there's, it's in my best interest to try and teach blokes and get these rangers to go on the right path instead of the wrong path. Otherwise, we're just going to go backwards and everything, So.
Well, James, another thing is I know you're involved in fire in Australia, and that's how I met you. What's the rough story with your fire involvement here?
Well, I started fighting fires on a volunteer basis with the RFS, Rural Fire Service in New South Wales, when I was about 16.
Wow.
Back then, you had a lot of blokes, but not a lot of equipment. So there was a lot of McLeod tools, or Raycos, your knapsack sprays, bags, action bags full of water, and the tankers were, the old Blitz, World War II Blitz, or from Vietnam, with a couple of tanks jammed on the back with an old pump that probably didn't work half the time anyhow.
What time period is this, the 80s?
We're talking about the 80s, 80s,
okay.
90s.
Yeah.
And then you'll see a lot of change coming in, where the uniforms of the PPE got better to what we have now. A lot more equipment, the trucks have been renewed and technology coming in, communications and radios and that sort of stuff. Support elements, big thing. We've got now, like, the food resources and the water for blokes on the fire grounds and that sort of stuff, which is a lot better. But unfortunately, we haven't got the blokes now. We've got all the equipment under the sun, but we haven't got the blokes. And I think, well, I don't know how they're going to solve that problem. Looking at the fuel loading we got here, because we've had a lot of wet weather the last couple of years, which has been fantastic. We've come out of a drought and a fair bit of rain. Out of that rain, we've got a lot of fuel loading coming in, and you can also see around the countryside now, as it's drying off, because we're apparently going back into another drought mid this year during our winter, which will probably set us in prime fire season, another big lot of bushfires starting next year, or end of this year going into next year in our fire season. So when we're looking at this fuel loading, and then I look at the blokes that we have not available to us to fight this, I really sort of don't know what they're going to do.
Well, why do you think the people are disappearing?
I think society's got a big part to play with it. If you have a look at most of your brigades, I think there's like 60+% of your volunteer force are over 60 years of age. Mm. Now, with the arduous side of it, you're going to have blokes who are going to be worried about their health on the fire ground for a start.
Yeah.
And you can't push them, not like in the States where you've got young blokes and hotshot crews and that sort of stuff, and they're required to do a test. And all them fellas are paid for, aren't they, over there? They get paid to do the job.
Yeah.
In Australia, they're volunteers.
Yeah.
And I think because they're not getting paid, you're not going to get the young blokes into it. Probably the sign of the times. But,
and James, your location of where you're at in the States is basically kind of the center, like mid. Where would you say the Bathurst general area is? Like, how would you describe it in New South Wales?
We're probably about 250 kilometres west of Sydney.
Beyond the mountains?
Beyond the Blue Mountains. And out here is a different type of fire than you get in the mountains, in that closed in metropolitan area. Out here we've got different, well, we go ranging from crop fires like your grass fires to your bush fires. In between here and Sydney we've got a lot of pine forest, and we've got the Pine Forest Agency that also fights fires, and we've got National Parks Wildlife who are fighting fires. I think part of the problem there is because, and I think they're trying to solve it now, as far as I understand, that they're going to try and join all agencies together under one umbrella, so it's not like three different ideas trying to fight the same fire and then button heads. Yeah, I think you're going to be in for a tough run next year.
Well, James, thanks for the talk. I appreciate it. And next, what we're going to do is go into some specialty skills and your background as a trainer and a scout from that. Thank you, James. We're doing this for all of you. If you like what we're doing, please give us a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and leave a comment below. See you next time.